I'm Richard Black, and thanks for joining me as I continue exploring various aspects of ministry health. Now, today I'm very pleased to have joined me the Reverend Simon Martin. I was about to call you the Very Reverend, but I don't think you're quite there yet. All the way from the Nelson Anglican Churches. Kia ora, Simon.
Kia ora. Nice to see you, Richard.
Now, my friend, you've got a really interesting job title. Can you tell people what your job title is and what it even means?
Uh, the uh, the titles I have are that I'm the bishop's chaplain, which is really a focus towards the bishop to support the bishop and ensure that the bishop is moving in the right direction, and the direction that he's moving in is supported, and he's encouraged, and also taking the bishop's decisions out into the diocese and helping wherever help is needed. So I do a lot of, should we say, urgent care, and a lot of go to places that are stuck or in strife or going through a bit of a challenge. Often I get called into places where there's a transition of leadership from someone resigning or from a calamity. And in the most recent case where a minister left to go and do some further study, I've gone in as a commissioner to be really a reset principle to look after the parish until we can redevelop ministry and bring it back to flourishing. So,
Wow.
I also have another title, which when the bishop goes away, I'm the vicar general, and my boys laugh at me, wondering whether I'm the general vicar, just run of the mill, just the general vicar, or whether they have to salute.
That's
Of
right.
course, I suggested my son should salute me.
Absolutely. You're a three-star vicar general.
So
Well,
there are lots of titles in the Anglican Church, but we don't really lean on them too hard in our diocese. So I'm a leader with other leaders, and I'm a
oh,
leader
brilliant. Mm.
with Bishop Steve.
Wonderful. Thank you. And so that we can get a bit more of a sense about you, just a couple of sort of general questions. Do you have any family?
I'm married to Fran. We've been married 30 years this year, and that's a delight. She's been on this journey with me in ministry, an amazing support and encourager. And we've raised two boys who were born on the same day but are non-identical twins. And they've not too long ago left home to study. So we are getting used to another kind of life again at home
Yeah.
without children. And but we love living in Nelson. Nelson's a fabulous place to live, and we often think we'd quite like to retire here, but it's not going to happen anytime soon.
So, I mean, you love Nelson, but if you could choose to live in any city, if you weren't allowed to live in Nelson, where else might you choose?
Oh, I mean, there's so many places I haven't been. Um, there are some idyllic places I have been, like Bermuda. We lived in Bermuda for a while, and gosh, that would be amazing to go back and live in Bermuda. Um, there are stunning places, wild places like the north of Scotland that we know quite well. And but I don't think I could come up with another place where I would rather be, Richard. I know that sounds awfully settled and boring of me to be saying that I like it where I am, but
Oh, no, look, that's fine. I'm sure your colleagues and Bishop Steve will be very pleased to hear that anyway. And what about a hobby of yours or a pet interest?
I love fishing. Anything with a rod and a line. Um, where there's water. Although I must say, I spent many hours practicing fishing on the lawn, on the back lawn when I was growing up, not really attempting to catch anything except my brother. But that's kind of where you have to learn fly casting for fly fishing. So I do really enjoy the backcountry and fishing. So
Oh,
that's my thing.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And now into some of the more meatier things that I'm really interested about. I know that the Nelson Anglicans have been going through, they've been embarking on this fascinating journey of renewal, if that's even the right word. Can you tell us a bit about what's going on and what's led to this?
we realized soon after the COVID episode, if I can call it that, that we really needed to try and focus forward and think about the future. We had to do some nurture and some repair and some reconciliation work, like most church fellowships and communities had to. And we needed to pay attention. So we started to really look in a lot of detail at the things that we were suffering, the things that our 23 parishes had in common, and the things, instead of wondering about what's the magic thing that's going to solve the problem of church decline and connection to the community, we really paid attention to the things that we found we had in common. And through that process, we launched into what's now known as our revitalization project. And we started with that deep dive. We faced some really difficult realities, some statistics, and some commonalities. And we looked at our symptoms. Rather than trying to rush to find a cure, we spent time in the symptoms that we were all having. And we brought those in prayer to the Lord for about 6 to 8 months. We had a season of discernment. And then we also got some outside help. And we used some folks to come and look at us, look at our parishes, look at our systems, as if we didn't already know how difficult and challenging things were. Having an outsider come in and say, "Did you spot this and this and that?" Oh my gosh, as well. So it was a very challenging time for our leaders and for our diocese. But it was incredibly healthy, I felt, as a way to bring our full reality, bring all the difficulties and the troubles and those symptoms together to one another and in prayer. And with the help of consultants and people journeying alongside us for about 2 years, we've developed some hallmarks of our next steps, our revitalization. So just roughly the things that we noticed we had in common: we had lost connection, meaningful connection with our communities. We were in very good standing, but we had lost meaningful connection, and many times we'd lost that conversation, that dialogue with our communities. We've seen an extraordinary number of young people leave, and families not attending, the demographics shifting towards a much older age group, and there's only a certain number of years you can keep that group as they get older. And so we noticed some big changes in our groupings. We also noticed a sense of fatigue, a sense of tiredness and weariness. And we thought it was a lack of confidence. We thought it may have been something to do with our appreciation of the gospel at work. And so that's quite a challenging thing for a church to really look at. The thing that we are trying to portray, the thing that we are trying to represent. Are we doing that well? Do we have confidence in the gospel, the power of Jesus to bring transformation? And in many cases, we had to admit that maybe we needed refreshment. We needed to rediscover the depth and the power of the gospel at work that brings transformation, that people want to hear. We'd noticed a huge decline in people coming to faith, people being baptized, and we recognize there's that link between what it is and how it is that we share the gospel and what we're inviting people into. So those were some of the symptoms we grappled with. We went through a season of discernment, and we had some outside help, and all of this coalesced into a revitalization project. So there was still a lot more work to do, and there still is a lot more work to do. But that's kind of how we got to a place where all of our parishes have been reviewed, all of our leaders have had 360 reviews, and all of that took place within about 14 or 15 months. So it was an extraordinary amount of work. And I must say the commitment and the patience of our leaders, lay and ordained in our parishes, was exemplary.
Mm,
And that sense of all pushing together, all wondering together, all in some ways lamenting together,
mm.
was
Because
a
I
brilliant.
imagine that's a hugely courageous thing to do, where for anybody to say, could you review me, please? Strip down naked in the proverbial kind of way and have a look at every part of me. And you already know something's not quite right. And you've got other people poking and prodding saying, yeah, and here's a list. I mean, that's incredibly humbling and an incredibly humble position to come from. Uh, you had been feeling from the COVID event that things weren't quite right, and the review simply confirmed that those main things, that the disconnect of meaningful connection and the lack of confidence or the weariness that was in people, the lack of spiritual spark is
Mhm.
words that I might put around it. But
Nicely put, yeah. Mm.
was there anything else that precipitated that we really need to do this?
We can't really overlook the place of leadership. So the sense that um, of commitment to something that everyone buys into is incredible power in a collaborative effort. But even to get to that collaborative effort needs those leaders of leaders to step out. Um, there's a lovely quote about leaders are the ones who put up their hands and say, "Yep, okay, I'll go first." And our Bishop Steve, is a courageous leader. He is a mission-focused leader.
Mm,
And so he's a forward thinker and a forward planner. He's always taking that step. And so for the gospel and for the kingdom and for the growth of the church, he is the one who's really had that trumpet sound, that rallying cry. Let's not stay here.
mm,
Let's move forward. And to move forward, let's consider some things deeply. One of the books that we read together was Canoeing the Mountains. Was
mm,
an extraordinary uh, uh, extra, should we say, impetus. It gave us a bit more spark. It's a really neat book about how when things change so much, you no longer have the tools or the equipment or the wherewithal to carry on doing what you've always done. That's ludicrous. We've got to do things slightly differently. We've got to think differently. The terrain has changed. And
mm,
it tells the story of these intrepid explorers in early history in America of taking canoes up the mountain, up the rivers up the mountain, and then realizing the rivers ran out. There was no more canoeing to be done. There was mountaineering to do.
yeah.
And so we read that together as a leadership group, and it helped us make some courageous decisions.
And brilliant. And so tell me about some of those courageous decisions. You've recognized the symptoms, things that aren't good. You recognized the health, the viability for us as churches, something needs to change. You've done the hard work, you've done the hard discernment time. And so now the kind of building blocks, so to speak, of moving ahead, or the seeds that need to be sown in order to bring about new life. What does that practically look like?
It looked first like patience, which nobody likes. My mum always used to say, "Don't pray for patience. You're going to be given lots of opportunity by God to develop it." Like, oh. and she was being facetious, but there is the sense of the waiting for the right time
Yeah.
and the waiting for everyone. So there is a sense of trying to pull and hold people together. And really, I'm talking about leaders here, that leaders together can bring much more change than a bunch of leaders separately. And so we did spend some more time waiting, and that's both frustrating and it can induce a bit more anxiety. We know what's wrong. Why are we waiting? What's the pause? And yet, I think that what we've got now is a collection, a collective, a collaboration level that is only really a benefit of prayerful investment of time together.
Mm.
The the other thing really is also to listen. So the building blocks really came about by listening to others, admitting that we needed help, uh, accepting the help that was given, as bitter as some of the medicine is, you kind of couldn't carry on sugarcoating it and making excuses. So there is also a sense of uh, holding each other to account and making ourselves accountable to one another. Because today I'm strong, but tomorrow I'm weak. Today I can do anything, but tomorrow I'm not sure about it and have lots of doubts. But so I need my other friends and in leadership to help me and to prop me up when I'm down, and me likewise. And so the sense of building was then to try and go for the things and try and find the common things that we can do together, recognizing difference, recognizing strength and shape, setting, geography, size, demographic. What are the things that we can do together that are still part of the mission critical? So it became apparent very quickly that we still needed to keep meeting together, and we needed to consider what our evangelism looked like.
Right.
So evangelism became something quite quickly that we knew we just could not get away from.
Mm. And so
As uncomfortable as that word is.
yeah, and it means slightly different things, certainly to different people. The In terms of the new ingredients from where you were as a group of churches pre-COVID, during COVID, to where you are now, if I can use this kind of metaphor, the ingredients that you're now adding in, the things that you're giving more attention to or emphasis. There's a wondering and a questioning around evangelism and what that means and what we can do to grow stronger in that. What other components did you start to focus on or develop?
The idea of vision is well written. There's lots out there when you're thinking about or reading about church vision, organizational vision. There's lots of debate and argument between mission and vision and how these things work. We focused on what is a gospel vision. So we wanted to reclaim more of the confidence of the gospel, and we wanted to put the mission of the church, the mission of God, the gospel front and center, and make that the common thing that we're all working towards. So rather than uh, all having one vision for the diocese, there is a vision for the diocese for us to be communities of faith, sharing Jesus in the top of the South and beyond. There is the sense of each parish having their own vision, but really helping and trying to steer that to being quite specifically gospel and mission focused. So when we are seeing ourselves in the future, what are the things we're actually seeing happen?
Yeah.
And we were taken through some very good material out of Mancini's book, God Dreams,
Mhm.
and we now are considering sort of a common language about visioning, connecting vision to strategy and plans. And so there's been a fair bit of work around that. That has been a new ingredient. Rather than just talking about any old vision for your church, we're talking about a gospel vision with a gospel theology, strategic plans, and then actual goals. So we now talk about the 1414, which we borrow straight from Mancini's book. One major one major vision, four pillars on which that vision sits, 1 year goal, and then 30-day goals below that. And we run that now as a wayfinder visioning day for parishes who want it. And then we'll review in 6 months and a year. We'll try and keep them on track with let's do something. Let's not sit around waiting. Let's do something. We're going to set this task and this goal in the next 90 days, and then another 90 days and another 90 days. It's that old adage of taking one step and then another step, and then before you know it, you've actually walked a path and
Mm,
you've learned some things and you've been working with others. So that part of the next steps has been, I think, really helpful.
mm,
And it certainly wasn't something we set out at the beginning to introduce, but it was a great advantage to do,
mm.
and we continue to do that in our parishes. We offer Wayfinder visioning days for parishes.
Great. And certainly you've mentioned that the focus on evangelism of also being patient and making sure you're getting to the right time and these gospel-centered visioning that's taking place with each parish trying to find their own expression of what that means and then
Mm.
bring down into strategy so we put legs on it. In terms of the shift from perhaps where the churches were to where they are now, can you give me an example of what one of those vision, the gospel-centered vision that a church might have that they're now trying to structure around?
I think there's a lovely example. Last Sunday, I was at a little commissioning service at one parish, and the neighbouring parish decided to not meet in their building, but come across town and meet with this other church. And so we had two parishes together at the commissioning of a new lay minister, and that's come about by a sense of shared mission together that these two parishes who are just in addition to that, they're doing work together, but they're also being overseen by a minister from a third parish. So there is something about the sharedness of this collection of three parishes that they're saying, look, it's much better that we do this together. Let's um, we've got slightly different words for explaining or trying to describe what we're doing, but the work we do, we can do together. So it was a wonderful partnership. That was the whole theme of the service. And I
Mm,
think that partnership in the gospel, regardless of the words that we use for it, that's a wonderful practical expression. And that takes a fair bit of guts and commitment from the leaders in lay and ordained leaders in each of the parishes to say, yep, we need help. And I think we can help you without being arrogant, but I think, yeah, we can help you and you can help us. Let's do this together. I think that's a really neat example.
mm,
Um, I think the other one is some of the gatherings around evangelism. I think are also a way of seeing that gospel-centered vision and mission. Um, the early steps in that is leaders saying, let's do this. Let's turn up. Let's consider what evangelism looks like in our day and age. Let's try and get over that our fears and our trepidations. So a sense of vulnerability. I think
mm,
what we what we're seeing is um, in five dysfunctions of a team. Lencioni suggests that trust, the foundational layer, that trust comes through sharing of oneself. And so that's an individual thing, but I think it's also a corporate thing that when we share of ourselves from one parish to the next parish,
mm,
we make ourselves vulnerable. If we can if we can vulnerably share what we have, but also borrow and beg and steal, the sense of collegiality means that we can trust one another, which then means we can actually conflict well. Do we
mm.
need more conflict in the church? Well, we need the right kind of conflict. We need the creative, the generative conflict. So I'm really encouraged to see more and more collaborative sharing, the sense of leaders being vulnerable with each other.
Mm. And it certainly sounds like churches coming out of their silo mentality into one where there's greater partnership, greater collaboration and cooperation taking place. And by the sounds of it, to focus on those critical areas that are really vulnerable that like what is evangelism and how can we do it in this day and age? Because we may not be all that great at it, but we know that the gospel is the power of salvation. And so if we're not about the gospel and the power of salvation, then what are we doing here? So I'm hearing that vulnerability of stepping into the things that they may not be comfortable with. And that's just wonderful to hear. If if I was a person in a parish pre-COVID times to now, and we're just talking sort of generally, take any sort of one of the churches, what might I be experiencing or seeing that's different to the previous reality in this parish?
I think there is a genuine uh, truth telling. I think there is a sense of, okay, um, we know that there are holes in the bucket, uh, and that sense of um, it's okay to talk about. It's okay to know that we've got we've got problems. Uh, Whereas I think pre-COVID, there was a sense of um, if we can just be more enthusiastic, if we can just kind of put a smile on our face and do things, a bit better, if we can kind of machine our way, white knuckle our way, if we can just get a few more people along to attend this or to run an alpha or to, similar programs, similar services, similar things that we are doing now. So in many ways, someone may not see a great deal of difference, but I think there is a degree of truthfulness, a sense
Right.
of
Mm,
honesty.
mm,
We know that we're in trouble. We know that there is this gap. We know that we're struggling. We know we don't have what it takes right now. We've lost stuff. We've forgotten stuff.
mm,
We've neglected stuff and stuff has happened to us. Society has happened to the church,
mm,
and has in many places moved on a lot quicker than the church has been able to adapt.
mm,
So I think there is a truth telling and honesty
mm.
and a reality, and it's okay to be there.
Mm. Brilliant. And so we've seen the recognition we're in trouble, something's got to change, that you've been able to identify that there's a disconnect between meaningful connection between a parish and that community, that the people are the leaders potentially are tired and have lost confidence, perhaps confidence in the gospel. You've gone through this review and revitalization process where there's focus on evangelism, partnership, vulnerability, patience, wonderful combination of things being sort of sewn into where you are now. And I appreciate it. It's early days. But when we think about the hope for the Nelson Anglicans and where you're trying to go and what you're trying to achieve, are there other indicators of sort of good news, of seeds of hope, as it were, that you can share with us?
I was wondering whether you would bring up the question of hope. When we were kind of in the thick of the analysis and the deep dive, one of our consultants said to us, Simon, you've done a great job of burning the platform. It's like, what on earth? So, you know that thing about getting people motivated to change? You kind of burn the platform so they have to jump into the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to get out of what you're doing. And then he said, but where's the hope? And I was so engrossed in, shall we say, the technical part of, trying to gather all the bad news together into one place. It was a real corrective to say, oh, hang on, we still, um, God is not dead. Uh, Jesus is still cool and has the words of eternal life. We've got to keep the message of hope. And I think that is, again, that's something our bishop is incredibly good at. I think that's where our senior leaders are expected to not only be willing and open to the truth of the difficulty, but have got a means of articulating a hope in in the current situation that we're in. We gather several times through the year in camps we just finished a camp last week at Kaiteriteri, our summer launch. We had 200 people there. We had another camp happening the week after that in Marlborough. 60 people gathered at that, 30 kids plus 30 adults. At our camp, 200, we had an incredible group of young adults serving. And we have new ministers joining the diocese, bringing, I think, fresh ways of looking at things and fresh mission and evangelistic endeavors. So when we gather, there is a sense of a bit of there's an excitement, there's a bubbling up in the times when we gather for corporate worship, in our commitment to prayer. See, I don't think people who are hopeless don't tend to pray. It's people with hope who tend to pray. Prayer is an expression of a sure and certain hope that we have. So there is a strong movement of an increase and a growth in prayer. And this, again, is where our bishop is leading. He is putting his hand up to say, okay, we have a hope. That's why we pray. And so there's a growing movement this year. We have our leadership camp in July, and we're delighted to have Sam Harvey, I believe, is coming to speak with us about 24/7 prayer and about, what does a praying leader look like. So I think gathering and people wanting to be together, wanting to be at training about evangelism, that's amazing, and prayer, a resurgence of awareness of the need to pray.
Yeah, and all stemming from the tangible sense of hope that God is. It's not that we're just hoping that something's going to happen. There's a sense that our God of hope is at work and He's not done with us.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. And certainly, from your position and your connection with other churches, I mean, some of the struggles that you have experienced in all the parishes is not purely isolated to the Nelson Anglicans. These are struggles that we've seen, around our country, but also around the world. In terms of some of the good news stories and in terms of some of the hope that you're seeing, I'm just curious. Are you aware of, or have you heard other stories of hope and good news of the energy in the church, of God at work in the church? Anything that comes to mind?
I'm very impressed with some of our brothers and sisters making commitments to dig deeply into their reality. I'm hearing of more and more churches, and even at denominational level, making decisions to face their reality square on, and stop wishing it were different. Doing deep dive analysis, asking for outside help, and hands are going up to say, I need help, we need help, please come and help us. If there is a spirit, if there is the Holy Spirit at work, I think it's in that space where leaders are encouraged. They get courage from the Spirit to say, we need help. We need help because we've run out. We are tired and we are weary. So I think the Spirit is at work in our country, in His church, and I think Jesus is calling, and I can hear others responding to I liked your word earlier that you used, renewal. There is a renewal of trust in what Jesus can do in His church.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's the encounter of what's sometimes referred to as holy desperation.
Mm,
That sense of when you're very aware the platform is burning, you've got to do something.
mm,
And the good news of people actually turning to their God, but also
mm,
to other brothers and sisters to say, we need help. Can you support us in this? Because it's only as we get honest about our current reality that we can start to do something about it.
mm,
I'll often say, if you can't see it, you can't address it.
mm.
But of course, looking at some of the unpleasant stuff is not easy, which is a great sign of courage and of humility. Well, thank you, Simon. This has been brilliant. Now, before we sort of finish, just in one of the things that I'd like to give people the opportunity about is, the job isn't done yet. There's still more to go. And in terms of the challenges that you see that are happening still with your leaders and in the parishes, what are some of the very real present challenges that we can also be praying into for you?
I'm going to start in a slightly unusual place in answering this question. And it's an uncomfortable place to start. And it's in the work that needs to happen following the Royal Commission into Abuse in State Care and Religious Institutions.
Mhm.
I'm convinced that if we don't attend to our uh, responsibility, the way that we respond, and in what way does that watershed report that there was a time before, and then there was the report and the recommendations, and now there is a time after that. And if we carry on pretending like we are, 10, 15, 20, 50 years ago, that it's okay, we don't, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing happening, there's nothing bad in the church, we're seriously deluded. And if we say we are without sin, then we are deceived, for there is sin in the church. And gosh, what does that mean? I think it means uh, I think it means a right place for lament, a an admission where fault is found, a a walking with survivors, a commitment to hearing the view, the voice, and to stay with those who have been hurt and abused by people in the church. Um, I think that will be a hallmark
Mm,
of a healthy church, be the hallmark of good, healthy leadership. It will be the way that we respond to um, what I believe should be a game changer in our country
mm,
and
mm,
in our church. It's a really difficult place to step into,
mm,
and we need very careful thinking. We need some really safe hands and good people to help us navigate this path. We've got some wonderful examples of those kinds of leaders in the Anglican Church. We need more, and we need a lot of courage to go there and to go there in a way that isn't about point scoring. This isn't about responding publicly, although maybe public responses are needed. This is about going to places of repentance, going to places of acknowledgement, and that will cost us. It will cost us um, uh, our bravery, our energy, our time, and our finances. If we don't do it,
brilliant. Brilliant. Well, we'll certainly be praying for you in those areas. I think you said that incredibly well. And thank you for your time today and sharing some of the insights of and the journey of what the Nelson Anglicans have been going through. And to everyone else, thanks so much for watching. If you have any thoughts or any questions that this interview has evoked, please put them in the comment section as well. But for now, ka kite.